In the endless void of space, Earth stood as a tiny speck of life in a universe brimming with the unknown. Aboard the interstellar vessel Ethereal Wave, Captain Lyra Voles monitored a holographic display of nearby star systems. The ship, a product of Earth's most advanced technology, was on a mission to catalog planets in the uncharted Zeta-4 sector. Little did she know, destiny had its own plans. Lyra had always been driven by curiosity, the kind that kept her awake in her youth, staring at the stars. Her team, an eclectic mix of engineers, linguists, and scientists, shared her passion for discovery. The mission had been uneventful, scanning barren worlds, collecting mineral samples, and noting cosmic anomalies. But everything changed when a faint distress signal reached their ship. "Captain," said Vega, her second in command, his voice tinged with urgency. "We're picking up a signal. Non-human origin." Lyra's heart skipped. She leaned closer to the console, watching the signal pulse like a heartbeat. It was erratic but unmistakably intelligent. Without hesitation, she ordered, "Locate the source. Set a course." As the ethereal wave approached the origin point, a small damaged craft drifted in the emptiness. Its sleek metallic surface shimmered with a faint otherworldly glow, but it was clear the ship had seen better days. Lyra's team worked quickly, pulling the alien craft into their docking bay. The air inside the bay was tense as the team prepared to meet whoever, or whatever, was inside. With a hiss, the alien craft's hatch opened and a tall figure emerged. Her form was humanoid, but her features were otherworldly. Silver hair that seemed to ripple like liquid metal, iridescent skin, and eyes that glowed faintly, shifting between shades of blue and green. "I mean no harm," the alien woman said, her voice melodic yet weighted with exhaustion. Lyra stepped forward, her instincts a mix of caution and awe. "You're safe here. I'm Captain Lyra Voth. Who are you?" The alien hesitated before speaking. "My name is Ilara. I come from the planet Estrella. My ship was attacked by scavengers. They stripped my vessel of its core." Lyra nodded, gesturing for her team to lower their weapons. "We can help you, Ilara, but we'll need to understand more about your ship." Ilara's gaze softened, gratitude evident in her luminous eyes. "Thank you, Captain Voz. Your kindness is unexpected." As the hours passed, Ilara shared fragments of her story. Her people, she explained, were explorers like humans, though far older and more advanced. Her mission had been a solo expedition to document the far reaches of the galaxy when her ship was ambushed. The scavengers who attacked her were ruthless, leaving her adrift and vulnerable. But there was something about Ilara's tone, an unspoken depth to her words. Lyra sensed there was more to her story than Ilara was letting on. That night, as Lyra stood alone in the observation deck, staring at the swirling nebula beyond, Ilara approached her. "Captain," she began softly, "there's something I need to tell you." Lyra turned, her curiosity piqued. "What is it?" Ilara hesitated, her expression unreadable. "I've met humans before, long ago, and I never thought I would encounter one again." Lyra's breath caught. "What do you mean? Where?" "A place far from here. A man named Adrian. He saved my life once, and I've carried the memory ever since." Ilara's voice trembled, her composure faltering for the first time. Lyra's mind raced with questions, but she knew this was just the beginning. Ilara's presence aboard the ethereal wave would unravel a story that would test the very boundaries of human and alien understanding, and perhaps the fabric of the universe itself. The silence between Lyra and Ilara stretched thin, the hum of the ethereal wave the only sound in the observation deck. Lyra's thoughts churned. Who was Adrian? And how did a man from Earth's past become a part of this alien's journey? Ilara's luminous eyes seemed to shimmer with the weight of her memories. "It was decades ago by your measure," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "My ship, much like now, was damaged. I crash-landed on a remote moon orbiting a gas giant. The conditions were harsh. barren rock, freezing winds, and a starless sky. I thought I would perish there. Lyra leaned forward, her curiosity bubbling. And that's where you met him? Ilara nodded. Yes, Adrian was part of a human expedition, a group of scientists studying the gas giant's atmosphere. They were as surprised to see me as I was to see them. But Adrian, he was different. While his team debated whether to help or leave me behind, he stepped forward without hesitation. What did he do? Lyra asked, her voice laced with wonder. Ilara's expression softened, her lips curving into a faint smile. He carried me aboard their ship despite his team's protests. I was injured, my energy reserves depleted. Adrian didn't understand my biology, yet he improvised, using Earth's primitive technology to stabilize me. Against all odds, he succeeded. Lyra felt a strange sense of pride for this unknown human. How did you part ways? The smile on Ilara's face faded. It was bittersweet. Once I recovered, I repaired my ship with the materials Adrian's team provided. He stayed by my side, curious about my world, my people. I wanted to share so much with him, but I knew our time was limited. I couldn't risk drawing attention to him or his kind. Ilara's voice faltered, her glowing eyes dimming slightly. Before I left, he told me something I'll never forget. Even if the universe tries to keep us apart, paths like ours always cross again. I didn't understand it then, but now. She met Lyra's gaze, her expression filled with a mix of hope and sorrow. Now, I wonder if he was right. Lyra was silent, her mind processing Ilara's story. And you think Adrian might still be alive? Ilara hesitated. Humans live such fleeting lives compared to my kind. It's possible he's no longer here, but if there's even a chance, I need to find out. The memory of him, it's been my guide through the years. Before Lyra could respond, the comm system crackled to life. Vega's voice came through. Captain, we've picked up a fleet on long-range scanners. They're heading straight for us. Lyra's brow furrowed. Friend lies. Unlikely, Vega replied, his tone grim. Their ships match the profile of known scavenger vessels. Ilara's expression darkened. They found me. Lyra's heart sank. She had heard of scavengers, raiders who plundered stranded ships and colonies, leaving devastation in their wake. How many? 5 ships, closing fast, Vega answered. Lyra turned to Ilara. Can they track you? Ilara nodded. My ship's core emits a unique energy signature. They must have followed its trail here. Lyra clenched her jaw. We won't let them take you. Ilara placed a hand on Lyra's arm, her touch warm despite its otherworldly texture. You've already risked much by helping me. If we fight, your crew could suffer. Lyra straightened, determination hardening her features. This is my ship, my crew. We stand together. Besides, she added with a wry smile, humans are stubborn like that. As Lyra strode to the bridge, her mind raced with strategies. The ethereal wave was equipped with defensive systems, but it was primarily an exploration vessel, not a warship. Still, she refused to back down. Status report, Lyra ordered as she entered the bridge. Vega pointed to the holographic display. They'll be in firing range in 10 minutes. I suggest we prepare evasive maneuvers. No, Lyra said firmly. We're not running. Ilara, can your technology be used to reinforce our defenses? Ilara studied the display, her mind working rapidly. If I integrate parts of my ship into yours, we could enhance your shields and weaponry. It's risky, but it might give us an edge. Do it, Lyra said. Vega, assist her. The rest of you, battle stations. The crew moved with practiced efficiency as Ilara and Vega worked on the integration. Sparks flew, and the hum of the ship grew louder as alien energy coursed through its systems. Minutes later, the scavenger fleet entered visual range. The lead ship opened fire, its energy beams slicing through space. The ethereal wave shuddered as its shields absorbed the impact, but Lyra held her ground. Return fire, she commanded. The ship's weapons roared to life, Enhanced by Ilara's modifications, the beams struck one of the scavenger ships, tearing through its hull. Ilara's enhancements were working, but the odds were still against them. As the battle raged, Ilara stepped onto the bridge. "Captain, there's one more thing we can do." "What is it?" Lyra asked. "I can use my energy to create a decoy, a projection of my ship's core. It will draw them away, but it will leave me weakened." Lyra hesitated, torn between protecting her crew and safeguarding Ilara. Finally, she nodded. "Do it. We'll cover you." Ilara closed her eyes, her body glowing brighter as she concentrated. A shimmering projection of her ship's core appeared, drifting away from the ethereal wave. The scavengers, seeing the decoy, shifted their focus, giving Lyra the opening she needed. "Fire everything we've got," Lyra ordered. The ethereal wave unleashed a barrage of energy, disabling the scavenger ships one by one. When the last ship exploded, the crew erupted in cheers. But Lyra's focus was on Ilara, who had collapsed against the console. Her glow dimmed. "Ilara," she said, rushing to her side. Ilara opened her eyes weakly, a faint smile on her lips. "Humans, always surprising." "You're safe now," Lyra said firmly. "And we'll find Adrian. Together." As the ethereal wave drifted through the quiet aftermath of battle, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that their journey had only just begun. The battle had left the ethereal wave battered but intact. The scavenger threat was neutralized, but Lyra knew it was only a matter of time before another danger found them. Ilara, still recovering from her energy expenditure, sat quietly in the ship's medbay, her iridescent glow faint but steady. Lyra stood by her side, arms crossed, her thoughts racing. "Ilara," she said gently, breaking the silence, "we need to move. If those scavengers sent a signal, more could be on their way." Ilara nodded, her voice soft but resolute. "You're right, but where will we go?" Lyra hesitated, then said, "You said Adrian saved your life. If there's a chance he's still alive, or if he left behind clues, we need to follow his trail. Do you remember anything that could lead us to him?" Ilara closed her eyes, her expression pensive. After a moment, she spoke. "He mentioned Earth. He spoke of it with such longing. He said it was his home, a world of oceans, forests, and skies filled with countless stars. I always assumed he returned there." Lyra straightened. "Then that's where we'll start." The ethereal wave altered its course, its engines propelling it toward the familiar blue planet Lyra called home. For Ilara, the sight of Earth on the ship's view screen was both awe-inspiring and bittersweet. It had been decades since she last glimpsed it, and she couldn't help but wonder how much had changed, or stayed the same. As the ship entered orbit, Lyra directed the crew to scan for records of Adrian. If he was part of a scientific expedition, there should be documentation, she reasoned. The crew's linguist and historian, Nolan, worked tirelessly at his station. "There's a lot to sift through," he said, his tone laced with frustration. "Earth's database is fragmented, and some of these records are decades old." Ilara joined him, her fingers deftly navigating the unfamiliar human interface. "Look for expeditions to moons near gas giants," she suggested. "That's where I met him." Hours passed before Nolan's eyes lit up. "Got something. A mission log from nearly 40 years ago. An expedition to the moon of a gas giant in the Kepler-62 system. And look at this." He'd highlighted a name on the screen. Adrian Keller. Ilara's breath caught. "That's him." Lyra leaned over the console, scanning the details. The log says he returned to Earth after the mission. He retired from active exploration shortly after. "Where is he now?" Ilara asked, her voice trembling with hope. Nolan frowned. "There's no record of his current location, but there's a mention of an old research facility in the Pacific Northwest. It seems he worked there before he disappeared from public records." Lyra nodded. "It's a start. Let's head there." The ship descended to Earth's surface, landing discreetly in a dense forest near the facility's coordinates. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. For Ilara, it was a stark reminder of how different Earth was from Astrea's crystalline beauty. Yet there was something grounding about the wild, untamed energy of this planet. The facility itself was a relic of the past, overgrown with moss and vines. Its structure was weathered, but its foundation remained intact. Lyra and Ilara approached cautiously, Vega and a small security team following close behind. Inside, the facility was eerily silent. Dust motes danced in the beams of sunlight streaming through broken windows. Old equipment lay scattered, and faded photographs lined the walls. Ilara's gaze lingered on one, a group of humans standing in front of a spacecraft. Her heart skipped as she recognized one of the faces. "Adrian," she whispered, tracing his image with her fingers. Vega scanned the room with a handheld device. No signs of recent activity, but the facility still has power. There might be archives we can access. Lyra nodded. "Let's find out what this place knows." After hours of searching, Nolan called out from a control room. "Captain, I found something." Lyra and Ilara rushed to his side. On the screen was a video log, dated nearly 40 years ago. The playback began, and the room fell silent as Adrian's face appeared. He looked older than Ilara remembered, with streaks of gray in his hair and lines etched into his face. But his eyes held the same quiet determination that had drawn her to him all those years ago. "If you're watching this," Adrian began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion, "then it means you found the facility. I don't know who you are, but if Ilara is with you, I hope this message reaches her." Ilara's breath hitched, tears welling in her glowing eyes. "I never forgot you, Ilara," Adrian continued. "You changed the way I saw the universe. I always hoped we'd meet again, but I knew the odds were against us. Still, I left this message just in case. If you're here, know that you were right. Paths like ours do cross again." The recording ended abruptly, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Lyra placed a hand on Ilara's shoulder. "He cared about you deeply." Ilara nodded, her emotions a complex mix of joy and sorrow. "He believed in fate," she said softly. And perhaps he was right. Before they could linger, Vega interrupted. "Captain, we've got a problem. I'm picking up movement outside. Multiple life forms, heavily armed." Lyra's instincts kicked in. "Scavengers." "Possibly," Vega replied. "We need to move." Ilara's expression hardened. "They won't stop until they have what they want." Lyra nodded. "Then we'll make sure they don't get it. Let's secure the facility and prepare for a fight." As the crew rallied, Ilara stood beside Lyra, her resolve unshaken. "Adrian left this message for a reason," she said, "and I won't let it end here." Lyra gripped her weapon, her determination mirroring Ilara's. "Neither will we." The search for Adrian had awakened something in all of them, a sense of purpose, of connection. And as the scavengers closed in, they knew their fight was far from over. The forest echoed with the faint sound of approaching footsteps, crunching leaves and snapping twigs betraying the scavengers' advance. Lyra motioned for her crew to spread out, positioning themselves in the shadows of the overgrown facility. The scavengers, ruthless opportunists, would likely stop at nothing to claim whatever alien technology they believed was hidden here. Ilara crouched beside Lyra, her iridescent skin dim to blend into the shadows. Despite the tension in the air, her focus remained sharp. Lyra whispered, "How many do you think?" Ilara closed her eyes, attuning herself to the faint energy signatures outside. 8, maybe 10. They're circling, searching for a way in. Lyra's grip tightened around her sidearm. They're not getting in. The first scavenger stepped into view, a grizzled humanoid with patchwork armor and a crude energy rifle. He gestured for the others to fan out, clearly intent on covering all possible exits. Lyra waited, her breath steady, her finger hovering over the trigger. Suddenly, one of Vega's traps triggered. A flash of light burst from the ground. sending two scavengers reeling backward. The momentary chaos was all Lyra needed. Now, she barked. The crew emerged from their hiding spots, weapons firing. Bright beams of energy cut through the foliage, illuminating the darkness. Ilara stood beside Lyra, her hands glowing faintly as she focused her energy into precise blasts, disarming scavengers with an almost surgical precision. The scavengers returned fire, their crude weapons no match for the ethereal wave crew's superior technology. But they had numbers on their side, and for every scavenger that fell, another seemed to appear from the shadows. One of the scavengers, larger and more heavily armored than the rest, charged toward Lyra with a roar. She dodged his initial strike, the heavy blade he wielded embedding itself into the wall behind her. Before he could recover, Lyra fired, her shot finding a gap in his armor. He crumpled to the ground, the fight leaving his eyes. Ilara, meanwhile, moved with fluid grace, her alien abilities allowing her to anticipate the scavenger's movements. She deflected a projectile with a wave of energy, then sent a blast toward the attacker, sending him sprawling. The fight was chaotic, but the crew's coordination gave them the upper hand. As the last scavenger fell, a tense silence settled over the battlefield. The crew stood amidst the wreckage, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. Vega approached Lyra, his face grim. "That was too close. We need to get out of here before more show up." Lyra nodded, wiping sweat from her brow. "Agreed. Everyone, back to the ship. Now." Ilara lingered for a moment, her gaze drifting to the facility. Lyra noticed and placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll come back if we need to. Right now, we have to survive." Reluctantly, Ilara followed the crew back to the ethereal wave. The ship's engines roared to life as they lifted off, leaving the overgrown facility and the fallen scavengers behind. Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that they had only just scratched the surface of what Adrian's message truly meant. Back aboard the ship, the atmosphere was heavy. The crew tended to their injuries in silence, the adrenaline of the fight fading into exhaustion. Lyra found Ilara in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Her glow had returned, faint but steady, a reflection of her determination. "We'll figure this out," Lyra said, leaning against the console beside her. "Adrian left that message for a reason. He wanted you to find it." Ilara nodded, her voice quiet. I don't know where to look next. The message, it gave me hope, but it didn't give us answers." Lyra considered this. Maybe the answer isn't about where Adrian is, but about what he wanted you to do. He said paths like yours always cross again. Maybe that's the key. Ilara turned to face her, her eyes searching Lyra's face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that we keep moving forward. We keep following the trail, no matter how faint it seems. Adrian believed in fate, and I believe in you." For the first time in what felt like ages, a small smile crossed Ilara's face. "Thank you, Captain." As the ethereal wave moved through the stars, its crew working tirelessly to piece together the puzzle Adrian had left behind, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the cusp of something monumental. The universe was vast and filled with uncertainty, but together they would find the answers they sought, even if it meant rewriting the very fabric of fate. The ethereal wave glided through the star-speckled void, its engines humming softly as the crew regrouped and began analyzing their next steps. The scavenger ambush had left its mark. Scorched panels and tense faces told the story of their narrow escape. But Lyra and her crew were not ones to linger in defeat. Their mission was clear: uncover the truth behind Adrian's message and the connection that bound him to Ilara. Ilara spent hours poring over the data Nolan had extracted from the facility, her focus unwavering. Lyra joined her in the command room, observing as the alien woman's luminous fingers danced over the console. Despite the exhaustion written across her features, Ilara's determination burned bright. "What have you found?" Lyra asked, leaning closer to the display. Ilara pointed to a section of the decoded records. Adrian left coordinates. They don't make much sense at first glance, but when cross-referenced with star charts, they match an uncharted region near the Nebula of Mirrors. The Nebula of Mirrors. Lyra repeated, eyebrows raised. That's one of the most treacherous regions in the sector. Navigating it is nearly impossible. Ilara met her gaze, but not entirely impossible. Adrian wouldn't have left those coordinates unless he believed someone could reach them. Lyra sighed, already calculating the risks. The Nebula of Mirrors was infamous among explorers, a vast region of reflective particles that created illusions and distorted navigation systems. Few who entered ever returned, but if Adrian's trail led there, Lyra knew they had no choice. Plot a course, Lyra said firmly. We're going in. The journey to the nebula was uneventful, a calm before the storm. The crew worked tirelessly to prepare the ship for the dangers ahead, reinforcing its shields and recalibrating navigation systems. Ilara assisted with modifications, using her knowledge of Astrian technology to boost their chances of survival. For the first time since joining the ethereal wave, she felt truly integrated into the crew. As they approached the edge of the nebula, the ship's view screen filled with an awe-inspiring sight. The Nebula of Mirrors shimmered like a celestial sea of diamonds, its countless particles reflecting starlight in every direction. But beneath its beauty lay the danger that had claimed so many explorers before them. Lyra stood at the helm, her voice steady despite the unease gripping the crew. Take us in, Vega. Slow and steady. The ethereal wave plunged into the nebula, its sensors immediately struggling to make sense of the distorted readings. Reflections of the ship appeared on all sides, creating the illusion of an endless fleet. The crew worked in tense silence. Every movement calculated, every decision weighed. Ilara sat beside Lyra, her glowing eyes scanning the data. There's a pattern in the distortion, she said suddenly, her voice cutting through the tension. If we adjust our trajectory to match it, we might find a path. Lyra nodded. Do it. Ilara's fingers moved swiftly, inputting the adjustments. The ship responded, its course shifting slightly. The reflective chaos around them seemed to stabilize, revealing glimpses of open space between the dazzling illusions. Hours passed like days as the crew navigated the treacherous maze. Each step forward felt like a victory, but the strain was evident. The crew's movements grew slower, their energy waning. Just as Lyra began to question whether they would ever emerge, Ilara's voice broke the silence. There, she said, pointing to the view screen. A structure. Lyra's eyes widened. Ahead, beyond the shimmering expanse, was a massive alien structure. Its design was unlike anything they had seen before, elegant and intricate, its surface alive with shifting patterns of light. It hovered silently in the void, a solitary beacon in the heart of the nebula. As the ship drew closer, a voice filled the cabin. Not a recording, but a live transmission. You've come far, travelers, it said, deep and resonant. But only those with purpose may enter. State your intent. Lyra exchanged a glance with Ilara. The alien woman stepped forward, her voice steady. We seek the truth. A man named Adrian Keller sent us. The structure's lights shifted, their patterns coalescing into a single, pulsating rhythm. Adrian Keller, the one who dared to bridge the divide. Enter and face what lies within. The ethereal wave was pulled forward, a gentle but undeniable force guiding it toward an opening in the structure. The crew braced themselves as the ship passed through the threshold, entering a cavernous chamber bathed in golden light. As the ship settled, Lyra turned to her crew. Stay alert. We don't know what we're walking into. Ilara nodded, her expression unreadable. But we're one step closer. Together, they disembarked, stepping into the unknown. The chamber's walls pulsed faintly, as if alive, and a path unfolded before them, leading deeper into the structure. At its end, a figure awaited, shrouded in light. Ilara's heart raced. Could it be Adrian? Or was this another test in a journey that seemed boundless? The answers lay ahead, and with every step, the weight of their mission grew heavier. Lyra and her crew had ventured farther than any before them, but they were far from finished. The truth awaited, and the universe was watching. The chamber seemed to breathe around them as Lyra, Ilara, and the crew moved cautiously down the illuminated path. The golden light pulsed in rhythm with their steps, as if guiding them forward. Ilara's glowing eyes scanned every detail, her heart pounding with anticipation. This place felt alive, its design, its energy, and its sheer presence whispered of intelligence far beyond anything she had encountered before. The figure at the end of the path became clearer as they approached. At first, it seemed incorporeal, like a mirage. But as the light shifted, its form solidified. A tall, humanoid being wrapped in robes that shimmered like liquid gold. Its face was partially obscured by a veil of light, but its voice, deep and melodic, resonated in the chamber. "You have journeyed far," the being said, addressing the group, "and yet your purpose remains clouded. Speak, travelers. Why have you come?" Ilara stepped forward, her voice unwavering despite the awe she felt. "I am Ilara of Astroya. We seek the man named Adrian Keller. He left a message, a thread that led us here. If you know of him, please tell us." The being tilted its head, as if weighing her words. Adrian Keller, a name written in the stars, a man who defied boundaries, who dared to seek what others could not comprehend. He is known to us. Lyra's breath caught. He was here. Yes, the being replied, its voice tinged with reverence. Adrian Keller was more than a visitor. He was a bridge, a link between your kind and ours. He came seeking answers, but what he found was far greater. What did he find? Ilara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The being raised its hand, and the chamber transformed. The walls became translucent, revealing a panoramic view of the nebula of mirrors. Within its swirling expanse, countless points of light flickered, stars, planets, and something more. He found the nexus, the being said, a convergence of possibilities. This place exists at the crossroads of space and time, where the boundaries of reality blur. Adrian understood its potential, and he made a choice that ripples even now. Ilara stepped closer, her luminous skin glowing brighter. What choice? What did he do? The being gestured, and the vision shifted. A scene appeared before them, a memory preserved within the nexus. Adrian stood at the center of a similar chamber, his face etched with determination. Surrounding him were beings like the one before them, their golden forms radiating power. He came to understand that the nexus is not just a place, the being explained. It is a force, a guide. It seeks those with the courage to embrace its truths and wield its power. Adrian was one such soul. The memory showed Adrian reaching toward a column of light at the heart of the chamber. As his hand touched it, the light enveloped him, and his voice echoed faintly. "Paths like ours always cross again," he said, his words filled with both hope and resignation. Ilara's chest tightened as the memory faded. He's gone, isn't he?" The being's gaze remained fixed on her. Adrian Keller became part of the nexus. His essence, his choices, and his purpose now resonate within its fabric. He is not gone, Ilara. He is everywhere. Lyra stepped forward, her voice firm. "If he's part of the nexus, can we communicate with him? Can we ask him why he left this trail for us to follow?" The being hesitated, then extended its hand. To commune with the nexus is to confront its truths. It will show you what you seek, but it will also reveal what you fear. The choice is yours. Ilara didn't hesitate. "I'll do it." Lyra placed a hand on her shoulder. "Are you sure? We don't know what this will do to you." "I have to," Ilara said, her voice steady. "Adrian left this path for a reason. If he trusted the nexus, then so will I." The being gestured toward the center of the chamber, where a column of light began to materialize. It pulsed with a rhythmic energy, beckoning Ilara forward. She stepped into the light, her form shimmering as the energy enveloped her. The crew watched in silence as Ilara's glowing figure seemed to dissolve, merging with the light. For a moment, all was still. Then the chamber erupted with visions, fragments of Ilara's memories, her fears and her hopes. Images of Adrian appeared, interwoven with scenes from her own life. Within the light, Ilara felt the presence of the Nexus surround her. It was overwhelming yet calming, an endless stream of knowledge and possibility. She heard Adrian's voice, clear and strong. "Ilara," he said, his tone filled with warmth. "You made it." "Adrian," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Why did you leave this for me? Why didn't you wait?" "I couldn't," he replied. "The Nexus needed a connection, someone to bridge the divide. But I knew you would find me, even if I wasn't here in the way you expected." Ilara's voice trembled. "What do I do now?" "Trust yourself," Adrian said. "The Nexus chose you for a reason. You've always had the strength to see this through. Now you must decide what comes next." The light around her began to fade, and Ilara felt herself being drawn back to the chamber. When she opened her eyes, Lyra and the crew were by her side, their expressions a mix of concern and relief. "What happened?" Lyra asked. Ilara took a deep breath, her resolve stronger than ever. "Adrian left more than a trail. He left a purpose. The Nexus isn't just a destination, it's a beginning. And we're the ones who have to see it through." The chamber pulsed with approval, as if the Nexus itself acknowledged her words. The journey was far from over, but Ilara knew one thing for certain. They were on the right path. The chamber of the Nexus pulsed faintly, as if responding to Ilara's determination. The crew of the ethereal wave stood in silence, watching as she regained her footing. Lyra stepped closer, her eyes searching Ilara's for any sign of what had transpired. "Ilara," Lyra said softly, "what did you see?" Ilara looked at her, her luminous eyes filled with both sorrow and hope. "Adrian isn't gone, not in the way we understand it. He's part of the Nexus now, part of everything it touches. He left this path for us, because he believed in what lies ahead." Lyra crossed her arms, her expression wary. "And what exactly is that?" Ilara turned to the golden being who had guided them here. Its form shimmered, its presence a silent reminder of the Nexus power. "The Nexus," Ilara said, addressing the entire crew, "is more than just a force or a convergence point. It's a gateway, one that connects countless realities, countless possibilities. Adrian's choice ensured that it could remain stable, but it needs us to take the next step." Vega stepped forward, his voice skeptical. "And what exactly is that step? What does the Nexus want from us?" The golden being spoke, its melodic voice echoing through the chamber. "The Nexus seeks balance. It has watched the rise and fall of civilizations, the crossing of paths that shape destinies. But it is incomplete. Those who understand its purpose must guide it, protecting its potential and ensuring it is never misused." Ilara nodded. "That's why Adrian trusted us. He knew we could continue what he started. We have to protect the Nexus and ensure it's used for exploration, connection, and understanding, not for power or greed." Lyra absorbed the words, her mind racing. The weight of the responsibility was immense, but she saw the resolve in Ilara's eyes. Despite everything they had faced, she couldn't deny the sense of purpose that had emerged from this journey. "What happens if we refuse?" Lyra asked, her tone cautious. The golden beam's glow dimmed slightly, its voice taking on a somber tone. "If you refuse, the Nexus will close itself off. Its power will remain dormant, inaccessible to all. The opportunities it offers, bridging worlds, connecting lives, will vanish, but so too will the dangers. The choice is yours." Silence filled the chamber as the crew exchanged glances. The gravity of the decision was not lost on any of them. Lyra's gaze lingered on Ilara, whose expression was resolute. I believe in Adrian, Ilara said finally. I believe in what he saw in us, in humanity, in Astrada, in all the worlds that could benefit from the Nexus existence. We can't let fear dictate our choice. We have to move forward. Lyra took a deep breath, then turned to her crew. What do you think? Vega shrugged, a hint of a grin breaking his otherwise serious demeanor. We've come this far, haven't we? Might as well see it through. Nolan nodded. This is what exploration is about, finding something greater than ourselves. I'm in. One by one, the crew voiced their agreement, their conviction growing with every word. Lyra turned back to the golden being. What do we need to do? The being raised its hand, and the column of light at the center of the chamber began to pulse brighter. You must become its stewards. The Nexus will grant you the ability to safeguard its power, to guide those who seek its knowledge. But this path will not be easy. You will face challenges that test your unity, your resolve, and your belief in its purpose. Ilara stepped forward, her form glowing in harmony with the Nexus light. We're ready. As the words left her lips, the chamber erupted with brilliance. The Nexus energy enveloped them, its warmth suffusing every fiber of their beings. Ilara felt a deep connection to the universe itself, as if the very fabric of reality was within her reach. Images flooded her mind, worlds unknown, lives intertwined, choices that rippled across time and space. She saw Adrian's face, his expression calm and proud. His voice echoed faintly. This is your journey now. Trust in it. When the light faded, the crew stood in silence, their bodies buzzing with residual energy. The golden being inclined its head. It is done. The Nexus recognizes you as its stewards. Go now and let your actions shape its legacy. As the ethereal wave departed the structure, leaving the nebula of mirrors behind, a quiet resolve settled over the crew. The journey had changed them, binding them not only to each other, but to something far greater. Lyra stood on the bridge, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. So, she said with a faint smile, where to next? Ilara joined her, her gaze steady and bright. Everywhere. With that, the ethereal wave surged forward, its engines carrying them toward new horizons. The Nexus was now a part of them, and their story, like Adrian's, was just beginning.